Hello. All right, let's kick off. So thank you everybody for joining today's coffee break from us here at SCOMathon, where today we're going to talk you through the ultimate guide to implementing the Manifesto for SCOM Success. So let's dig in. But before we do, just to quickly say that, as always, we run alongside the GoToWebinar chat. We have our Slack channel, which is at scomathon.com/Slack. And on there, you can network with your peers and, of course, ask any questions as we go through today's content. So do go and check it out now. We'll be looking for Q&A there afterwards. So who am I? Let's start with that. So I'm Bruce Cullen. I'm the Director of Products here at Cookdown and also host of SCOMathon. But I have some special guests today. So it's not just me, you'll be pleased to hear. My first guest is Jan Pettersson, you're a systems specialist at Umeå University. Hopefully I said that right. You'll have to correct me if not. Welcome.
Thank you. It's pronounced Umeå, but it's not easy for an Englishman. So, but you did good.
Thank you.
I worked with SCOM or operations manager since 2002, and my team ran the whole shebang of systems here at Umeå University. And the most important thing is that I have 1 hour to go until vacation.
1 hour to go till vacation. That is an important detail. It means you're just hot, ready to get this thing done, and then you're looking forward to being. There's not going to be any delays for anything. It's great to hear. And it's great to have you with us. This will be sort of the second time I think you've spoken at SCOMathon, having spoken at SCOMathon back in May. And it's great to have you back and great to have you with me today. I have another special guest as well. Someone who is less new to the world of SCOMathon, Nathan Foreman, you are with us today. You are our product architect at Cookdown. Hello.
Thank you. Luckily, no trouble pronouncing the name of Cookdown, so we're good there.
This is true.
Yep. I've been around SCOM for quite a while and been with Cookdown since it started, and just happy to jump on these SCOMathon coffee breaks when I get the chance.
Always good. And again, it's great to have you with us. So thank you for being here. I guess without further ado, we should probably just dive in to what is this manifesto that we're talking about today? Well, it is not a new thing. It's been around since 2020. In fact, it was launched at SCOMathon 2020 back in June of 2020. And it was written up on the SquaredUp website in blog form. This was before SCOMathon.com really had blogs. In the early days of kind of COVID, and it was basically 5 simple principles that will let you be successful with SCOM. They sort of transcend tools, and we feel that if you follow them, you'll be successful with SCOM. We're going to be talking about a bunch of the tools that you can use to make this manifesto a reality. Although we are going to pick some specific tools, they are tips that are tool agnostic, and they're more just sensible principles for being successful with SCOM. We felt that when we set out the manifesto back in 2020, it was one thing giving people sort of the general gist and the idea, but a whole other thing helping them to be successful with it. And so we're going to be giving you tricks, tips, and pointers to do that. It was set out in the keynote by Richard Benwell, who is this guy. He is the CEO of SquaredUp, in case you don't know him. And he's been around SCOM for a large number of years, so has lots of experience in this area. So that's what it is. The points in question that make up the manifesto, there are 5 of them. We're going to go through them one by one. And the first one is this, which is to turn everything off and tune things up, not down, when it comes to monitoring. The whole basis of this one is that when people set up monitoring for the first time, they'll import a bunch of management packs, and SCOM will go off and discover objects and start alerting. And everything seems fine until you get an inbox filled with alerts, and also with angry emails from the people that are consuming those alerts, asking why they're being spammed. It's such a common approach, and we think the alternative is rather than just go with the defaults in each of the management packs, is to actually work with the domain experts in each of the areas. So the SQL guy for SQL, for example, because ultimately those people are going to be consuming the alerts and are experts at those areas. So work with them and tune up on a group by group basis rather than blanket rules, and you'll be a lot more assured of success. That's the theory. Jan, this is where I'm going to turn over to you to show us how we make it reality. So if I make you presenter, you can show us what you have to show.
Well, thank you. Let's see.
I see your screen.
You see my screen? Great. Thank you. Well, I'm going to talk about the EasyTune from Cookdown, which you can download and run for free. With the free edition, you can tune 5 tuning packs. And if you upgrade to the Pro version, you can tune as many packs as you like. And for the example here, I'm going to use this SQL Server version agnostic. I have imported the management pack version agnostic. And the first thing I would do here is to tune globally. That means all SQL servers. I will do tuning on them. And as we're going to do, we're going to turn everything off at first. So here I select the discovery only option. This means it will use all of these overrides. It will turn off every monitoring and every alert that's included in this management pack. You can see here MS SQL on Windows, read 1 bytes per second, false. Everything says false. And then I click next. And then I can select to automatically create a new management pack here, where it stored this one. And then I see the result. I have selected tuning level discovery only and scope global. That means all SQL servers or Windows servers at first. And finish. And after I've done this, then I can tune more specific. I can select that I only want alerts coming from these SQL servers or these specific servers in a cluster or something like that. Spinning.
While we're waiting, did you? What did you guys use before you discovered EasyTune? Because I mean, there are obviously other approaches.
We used the manual approach. Right-click, override, right-click, override, right-click, override, and it was pretty time-consuming. It took a lot of time to do that. So EasyTune was a bless from above. So.
That's good to hear. And just in the spirit of full transparency, you're not being paid to talk about Cookdown stuff. I can assure you.
And we're actually running the free version. So.
Yeah, you are. That's true. Yeah. And as you say, there is a free version, and clearly it's giving you guys enough value to be successful. But just to also highlight that there are other approaches to doing this.
Yeah. And then when we turn off everything, we can then select to tune on a group. That means a SCOM group or a specific object that we have done. And if I select a group, and then I just take a group here, I hopefully have one here. I think my demo environment is pretty slow. I select this one, that's SQL production servers, and then I've populated that with the servers. Yeah. And then we have a couple of default levels here that you can use. We have the performance. If I select that one, it disables some alerts and leaves others enabled. And you can see here what changes it will make. And these ones come from the community. People have used this to create manual overrides and so on. They have put these in more pinpointed, where we have performance tuning level, production tuning level, QA tuning level, and test. And you see if I select test here, we turn off a lot more we only get alerts for some servers. So here I can select on the production.
So just to say on those the tuning packs you're tuning from and those levels, that they all come from a GitHub backed repository, so anyone can see what's in them, and ultimately they're just spreadsheets, which is part of the beauty, because it means, you know, everyone knows how to open a spreadsheet, don't they? So intuitive.
Yeah, and then here's a really nifty stuff. You can use a schedule for this. So if I would like to, I can only say that these alerts are active during work hours. So I won't get any false alerts during evenings or weekends. I only want the alerts to trigger when we're actually working. If a server runs slowly because of backups on nighttime, we don't want to see in the morning a lot of alerts created just because it was running a backup.
Mm.
And here I can say that I enable this tuning level inside of that schedule. And then I save it in the management pack. I will cancel this one so we don't have to see that spinning donut again. Another thing I can do is to create a custom tuning pack.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't like one of these, I can create my own. And then I select create tuning pack. And we'll see here, where's the SQL one? I think I'm blind.
There's quite a few there.
Yeah, there we go.
So while you type this out, I'll kind of go over it. So what it's actually going to do there is just pull out all the workflows in there, because the idea was we can't make one for everything. So why not give you that basic starting sheet like you have here that can be opened in Excel, just point to a management pack and it'll spit it out for you.
Yeah, exactly. And here I can change this header here that says custom and then create a name for my tuning pack. So this one could perhaps be called SQL prod IIS, that SQL servers that have a IIS front end. And then I change the overrides here I would like to have for that override. I can say that this one will generate false. It won't be activated.
And for the less brave, this will open in Excel with
it's easier to see the menus, see the columns there. I have one from the SCOMathon here we used before, the Veeam tuning pack where I created.
So one question for you then, Jan. How much do you customize tuning packs rather than just take them off the store? Is it more common you do customize, or just accept the ones that come with it?
Both, I would say. We have a couple of own tuning packs, and we also use the default that comes from the community. So I think they're quite good. They do the work. You can see here if I tune VMware here. Okay, I didn't have that installed right now.
I guess me all the time.
So this example as well here, we can tune the Windows servers. Select the group here as well. Just any group, it doesn't matter right now. And you see here we have a couple of tuning levels here as well. This is for a database Windows server. This is for Exchange Windows server, IS, and so on. And we can see what overrides are enabled or disabled for that. This one we have used quite often just to get the right levels on different systems instead of creating our own.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Well, really good to see it in operation. Good to hear how it's helped you in the real world rather than just in our demo lab. And it's certainly a valuable tool when it comes to alert tuning and allows you to make that principle of turning everything off and tuning up on a group by group basis sort of possible, what with the ability to customize it as you see fit, which is really, really cool. So thank you for showing us that. If I bring back on my screen. The next thing we're going to talk about is point number 2 of 5, which is investing in custom monitoring. So this is obviously a massive, massive area. The fact that Select, the company, make a whole living out of just this one point says there's a whole lot to it. But ultimately, there are only so many management packs you can download or buy from a vendor. There comes a point where to truly be successful with SCOM, you need to start writing your own monitoring. Now, that does sound daunting to start with, but it doesn't have to be. So for this next one, I'm going to bring on Nathan and get you to show us how to get going with custom monitoring in SCOM.
Perfect. And before I show my screen, worth pointing out that, like Bruce said, it can be overwhelming. So I'm going to try and go the opposite direction of what people have probably seen me present before, and go with less is more in this case. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go simple and talk about why. But as everyone knows, SCOM can be extended to do anything you can imagine, but that's not really necessary. So I'm going to talk on the other side of things today. So you should be able to see my SCOM instance coming through there. Yep. And I just wanted to point it out, some of the items that you can get just out of the box in the authoring pane. So what people may miss out on when you take something straight from Microsoft or a management pack author is anything that's custom for your environment. So let's say that your application team, for whatever reason, knows that there's a specific event that they can say, you know what, if this fires within an hour, we are going to run out of disk space. We are going to hit a known issue. And that may only apply to your company. But if it's known, it's something you should definitely utilize. And it's an easy one to take through the UI here. SCOM has everything for that Windows events. You can do just as simple and say, well, if I detect it, reset it after 2 hours. Or you can even say, you know what, let's detect it. And then they have another event to say it's clear. But Microsoft has taken the time to make these UIs to do all of that through here. So even though we frequently talk about things at SCOMathon, how to do these elaborate monitoring, or I think we've done one, what was it we did before, Bruce, on the TFL, like how to do an API monitoring and keep that. SCOM has the power to do that, but custom monitoring, when we say it, it can be just as simple as, go into this this thing and say, when event 234 comes up, I want to be notified. Mm. So I think that's one of a couple things that people need to not overlook as saying, like, well, it's just the old SCOM console. Because it does still give you the items here to go through and look. You can pick that, you can build out your event ID, your event source. It's pretty robust, and then at the end it will let you generate an alert or not, which you can action on, and will be much more specific to whoever that requester was that came to you, hopefully just a couple of days ago, and said, when I see event 234, within an hour it's going to be down. So let's just make them something for that. Included in there as well, which I use less often, but are performance-based ones. If you know something specific to your application, of course you can get CPU monitoring, which is going to apply to everyone. But if you have, say, number of items used in a collection, and say, well, if this gets above 90%, whether it's for your, building management system, say, oh, number of HVAC systems turned on, or whatever the case is, you can just set that perf counter wherever you collect it and have an alert off it. I'm trying to think of something more realistic there, but my imagination is drawing a blank on probably a queue or something, right? Like a processing queue that your application exposes. If this is over 10, that's too much of a backlog.
Mm-hmm.
And then worth mentioning, we won't really dive much into it, and there is definitely plenty of information online, both on the SCOMathon site as well as Kevin Holman's blog or many others. You can use scripts. So this one, I would definitely make sure you think about a little more before you implement, because there is a cost to running scripts, but they can do anything that someone can describe to you that, oh, if this condition shows up and I can view it in PowerShell, you can just run that script every 5 minutes and say, check for this condition every 5 minutes and return it. It's just you need to think that there is a cost to launching the PowerShell. We've seen a couple people where they'll turn it down to 1 or 2 minutes, which SCOM will allow you to, but it's one to be careful with. And then I'm trying to think, the other one that gets overlooked in here but works well in the authoring templates is there's web application monitoring. Some of these that are built in, they work pretty well. So the web application will let you check a page for specific text, nothing extremely fancy, and URL Genie will do it as well, but maybe you just want to look for copyright 2022 on your company's site every 5 or 10 minutes. That gets you quite a ways farther than nothing, and you can set it up in 10, 15 minutes. The same goes for TCP port. If you don't have an in-depth knowledge of a destination system, maybe you just want to check if the port's listening. It's basic, but without diving in more, it gets you network connectivity end to end. It gets you as the system up. It gets you some latency stuff.
I imagine that would get you sort of most of the way there, for some cases.
Yeah. Like if you think of it, like a connection to a database you don't understand, just knowing that the port is listening and accessible from your source server gets a lot of questions answered out of the gate. So, and I definitely welcome anyone to dive in and look at further things, but this item on the manifesto really specifically talks to that point that in your business, your use cases will be different than everyone else's. You'll share a lot of them, but when there's something specific to you, make sure that you just take a minute to look through and put it in, and don't think that either, oh, this is too difficult for me, or oh, I can't write scripts. There may be a UI for exactly what you need, whether it's OLED DB data source. Maybe you just want to check your database to make sure your processing application has checked in every 10 minutes. All of that stuff is in there and ready to go. So that's
Absolutely
the biggest takeaway from this point.
Thank you very much. Absolutely. It's one of those things that for the majority of cases, just getting going with something that's custom gets you a good chunk of the way there. And if there are things you can quite easily monitor for that aren't sort of war and peace to create, you'll end up being the hero when you pick that thing up and do something about it proactively rather than waiting for it to fall over. So thank you very much.
Get some good attention to the SCOM product as well. Once people see alerts they're looking for.
Absolutely. So thank you very much, Nathan. Moving on to the next point, which is to put your applications in the picture. So as we know, SCOM is great at infrastructure monitoring. It's kind of the bread and butter of SCOM, but ultimately, the world is changing from an infrastructure focused and sort of centric world to one focused more around applications. And the good news here is the SCOM, has you covered, doesn't it? Ultimately, with this distributed application functionality and APM as well, if you run .NET apps. So to go beyond simply infrastructure monitoring and actually build out your applications as DAs in SCOM is sort of the next thing we're going to talk about. Jan, I'm going to hand over to you for this one. So when you're ready.
Yeah, Nathan mentioned a lot of this. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves is what makes an application. So let's say I have an application, but I have a web server, I have a SQL server, I have another kind of application server, and that makes my application run. So how do I know if the application runs? Well, it could be that you have the service that's called X that's running. It has to be running. I have the port number 1433 that has to be open on the SQL server for the SQL to be running. And maybe the website then has to respond, at least respond, or it might need to respond with a specific test, C64 rocks. And one thing I could test there with the text on the website could be that if I know this text is on the website, I know that the backend is responding. The website is picking up something from the backend, so the whole chain works. And it could be that the SQL server is running, as I said. That has to be running. Or I could perhaps look for a record in the SQL server that it has put in some information the last hour or so. If that doesn't happen, something has stopped. Or it could be a log file where it should write every now and then. So I need, if it doesn't write to that log file, I know that this application has stopped. I have some examples from our applications here. Take it up in full screen so it shows better. Here's an application we run here at university. It's called Gespage. It's a printing solution where you can go and just blip your card at any printer and get your print job from there. You just send it to a dummy queue. And for this application in specific, we put in that the drives needs to be okay. We don't want the drive where the spooling happens to be full. If that happens, the application will stop working. And then this service have a couple of ports that needs to be running or open for it to be okay. And these are specific for this application. And then we also check the website, see if that's up and running, and responding back with a text that says the server is running. And then I have also created a couple of service monitors. I have done a discovery for services that's called Gespage or guest page maybe. And all of those needs to be running for the system to work. And in this specific case, I used the service wildcard management pack because I find that quite easy to use instead of the built-in one. It's easier to pinpoint when I don't know exactly what the service is named on that server.
How many servers are involved in the makeup of this application?
They have 4 servers in this one. There's 2 spooling servers and 2 front-end servers in this one.
Cool.
And another example, we might be the only one still running this one. It says link here, but we're running Skype for Business. So here's the monitoring of our telephone system. We run Skype for Business for our telephony here at the university. We're switching over to Teams right now, but we still have this one up and running. And here this one is really simple. It just checks the edge for the ports that needs to be opened on that one. It checks the website that the client connects to and see if you can get a 200 response from that one. And we also check the ports here at the zip trunk to see if that responds from the mediation servers. And we also have a monitor for some specific disks where the SQL logs its data and client data as well. We also put in the certificate, so we get an alert if something happens there, if that doesn't work for some reason. And we also put in the database, so we can see if that's working and up and running.
So one of the things that I think is good about this example is some of these bits and pieces like disks, for example, and databases will be monitored regardless of layering on the DAs. But the value here of calling out these specific disks in this specific database is rather than just saying another disk is nearing being full, you can understand the value of doing something about it. Oh, this disk is the one that powers our Skype for Business server. This is really, really important. We need to jump on this right now. Obviously, there are things in here like the ports that are specific to this app and are likely not to be monitored otherwise. But for the things that are, it's sort of adding an extra layer of sort of emphasis and importance on things you're already monitoring, which is a really important piece.
Yeah, I will show later when we talk about dashboards that we have put up these ones on our service desk dashboard so they can instantly see if something is wrong with the application. That was everything Perfect. I had about that.
All right, let me take back screen then and move on to the next one. So the next one is manage alerts with ITSM. So essentially, really, really simple in sort of principle. The gist here is that basically SCOM's primary mechanism for telling you that something is wrong is the good old-fashioned email, which works fine when you have a few of them, but not so fine when you have hundreds and thousands of them. And let's face it, with large SCOM deployments, that is the world we live in. Sometimes, even if we tune things optimally, and simply that mechanism, that method for consuming alerts is not how teams work in reality for the most part today. Be much better served if you were to raise those alerts in your ITSM tool, whatever it might be, as incidents or as tasks, depending on the nature of them. And in order to do so, you'll be much more successful. This is the one where you've got me giving you the demo. There are two things to say here. So the first is what I'm going to show you today, which is a Cookdown product called Connection Center. The second thing to say is essentially that there are many ways of doing this that are free. We have a blog that we wrote a couple of years ago on how to essentially send alerts to anywhere via PowerShell. It's very, very simple. It's like, half a page's worth of PowerShell that you can copy and paste to get started with. Which means that we're not just talking about any one specific ITSM tool, but ultimately anywhere. What I'm going to show you here is our Connection Center products, which will allow you to kind of do this programmatically. And it's sort of an off-the-shelf solution to this problem to let you do things like this. So you can see here I'm pulling incident information back into SCOM. So you haven't got to context switch between your ITSM tool. All the alerts still being generated in exactly the same format that you're used to, but you get the added benefit of those incidents. So how this thing works, actually, one thing I'll do quickly before I go in to show you how this works is, in the interest of time, I'm going to push a bunch of these SCOM alerts over to ServiceNow, which is the ITSM tool I'm dealing with here today. Let's pick any old ones, really. Let's pick these guys. In my lab here, only the alerts with resolution state of raise incident, which is clearly a custom state in my lab, are pushed across to ServiceNow. And it will take a couple of minutes for these to be picked up. So I can be talking and they can be going across in the background. So we're now going to go to the administration pane and we're going to have a look under Connection Center, where we can see all of the bits and pieces that we can push into and out of SCOM. And we're going to look at, to start with, outbound notifications, which is pushing alerts from SCOM to places. I can see I've got two connectors in here, one that pushes to ServiceNow, to my production instance, and one that pushes to Microsoft Teams. Connection Center will actually allow you to push SCOM alerts anywhere via the humble but powerful webhook as well. So while I'm showing you ServiceNow, the same, at least as base principles, is possible with anywhere with webhook again, and all without writing any code. So how you would do this is you come in here and go add connection. You're then asked, where do you want to connect to? I'm going to pick ServiceNow. And then we're asked for information about the ServiceNow instance we're going to be pushing to. So I'm just going to put in something so that I can complete the wizard. I'm not going to save this because I already have a working connector set up. Just have to delete my company because otherwise it will realize I haven't put anything of value in there and won't let me proceed. But essentially we're putting in here our ServiceNow URL and name, defining the credentials to use, which are stored in SCOM as a run as account and profile, which is SCOM's recommended method, also out of the box methods. We're going to enable the connection. We're going to specify what is going to be receiving the alerts we're sending. Now I've got two choices here. I can either pick a ServiceNow certified store app, which is a free thing that we make, or we can pick ServiceNow's event management module, which is possible. And then I see the subscription criteria picker that you'll be familiar with when creating subscriptions for email. So exactly what you'd expect to see here is possible. You can add in all these together as you're used to doing. Exactly the same as you'd be used to, essentially. Let's say we want to, let's pick, only send across alerts of a specific priority. We want to only send across the high priority ones. You know, that's what you would do. All of the configuration I'm creating here is stored in the management pack, which is saved in SCOM. You can choose the default, which is we'll create a management pack for you, or pick an existing one from the list if you want to. I'm going to accept the defaults. On the summary screen, you see everything you've put in, or you will do when it loads. But ultimately, I'm not going to complete this wizard because I have a working connection already. There's another piece to this puzzle, which is inbound notifications. So we've handled sending alerts to SCOM. Now we need to handle pulling back information on those alerts on the incidents raised. It's exactly the same principle. It's a next finish style wizards where you provide information around what you're pulling back into SCOM. I'm not going to show you the wizard, just showing you that there's other dimensions to this product. And ultimately, the result will be incidents pushed from SCOM into ServiceNow along with their incidents. The next thing to show you is what's on the other side, which is in ServiceNow. So if I refresh this, this is my ServiceNow instance, and what we're looking at here is our ServiceNow certified store app, which is the thing that receives these SCOM alerts and does something with them. So these are the two that I pushed across. You can see they've come across as expected, and you can see they've been raised as incidents here. Before I go into these specifically, I'm going to show you quickly the rules that result in incidents being raised. These are really, really important because these govern when an incident is raised or not, essentially. And these are run through in priority order from most specific to least specific. And I'm guessing these ones would have hit the generic infrastructure rule. I'm going to have a look at one that's slightly more interesting, which is my SQL team rule. And how this works is it looks at the properties of the incoming SCOM alert to match properties against to make decisions. So all of the properties of the SCOM alert are available to you. Then you have the ability to match bits of information about these properties, from simple things like string matching through to more complicated things like pattern matching or regular expressions. And again, you can add in all these together as so. So here I'm looking at anything that contains SQL. Essentially, the alert name or the management pack contains SQL, and ultimately the alert is not closed. And then what we're going to do in this case, when a match is found, we're going to raise an incident. You can raise other things in here as well, like tasks or problems, depending on what it is you're pulling across from SCOM. So if you're ITIL compliant and you're looking at a disk space is low type alert, that's not truly an incident, that's more a task. So we give you the ability to do that. And then all of the properties of that incident are here. I'm not going to go into the full details of what's possible here because we have limited time. But ultimately, the thing that matters is these SCOM alerts, like this PowerShell script failed to run one. Not only in ServiceNow do we have all of the information about the SCOM alert, but we also have the incident raised here, which looks like this. Ta-da! So we have our incident in ServiceNow. You can see all of the information relating to it pulled through from the SCOM alert. And with the power of bidirectional sync, we'll also have the incident ID and all of the information from ServiceNow pulled back through into SCOM, from the incident ID to who it's assigned to, which in this case is nobody, through to the alert state, CI and business service, and what's pulled back into SCOM is customizable. Obviously, like I say, I'm showing you a product. Here, there is an option to do this with PowerShell, which I'm not going to be demonstrating today, but I will put up a slide in a minute that shows the link to the blog that gives you all the information on how to do that. But it's a very powerful product and suite of capabilities.
One of my favorite things of pushing to ITSM is it can effectively put people's hands to the fire, if you like, on issues that aren't getting resolved, because ITSM usually comes with a process, which means it's going to roll up to management, and there's going to be an incident leader that's like, hey, this has been open. So it works great to get things closed, and it also rolls back, as you saw, Bruce had the incidents on tickets that were open, and I guess this applies both to the product and non-product version. But if someone doesn't want an incident on it, maybe they don't need monitoring. And it's a great way to just start that conversation to say, well, if you're not willing to get an incident, maybe I don't need to deal with email spam for it. So ITSM gets a lot of weight behind that.
Absolutely. What gets measured gets done is ultimately what this is in practice. The other thing about an ITSM tool is it usually comes with a CIO and an SLAs, which email does not, which does help in this case too. So that's the next thing to look at. Then we have dashboard. So the gist here is SCOM is great at doing the actual monitoring, the really difficult piece of the puzzle. It's not so good at displaying that information. You're usually consuming that information via a sea of alerts or rather clunky performance visuals within the SCOM console itself. There are ways around this. From the humble native dashboard to third-party solutions, and this is going to be another one that I hand over to Jan for, because you will do this much better, much more justice than I could do. So I'll hand over to you to show us.
There we go. See my screen? Yeah,
I can.
Great. I will show you a couple of example dashboards we're using here at the university. And here's the first one. We have a dashboard created for our operating crew who take care of our main server hall where we have our servers. And here they can see the temperature down in the where the servers are, and they can see the amount of load on the backup batteries and how runtime they can do on the remaining current. And as well, they can see how many open tickets they have, öppna ärenden in Swedish, they have in our ticketing systems. Here we have we are running Managed Engine, have a ticketing system called Service Desk Plus, and here we use the SQL integration in SquaredUp to pull that information from the database, so we can see all the tickets that are open in that particular queue for the people taking care of this specific area.
That's really cool. The thing that's great about this is pulling together multiple tips, basically. So you've got incidents from Service Desk Plus, your ITSM tool, which was the last tip. You've got custom monitoring, possibly, presumably in here to pull all the information about UPSs and temperature, presumably here. You're displaying this visually to make the data come to life so that people can see something rather than, in this case, all there would be to see is an alert, presumably for that incident and not much else. So you can take steps proactively if required. This is brilliant.
Yeah, we're using SNMP monitoring for the UPS here. And of course, we have the menu for the campus restaurants there as well. Very important.
It's important. Lunch is an important thing.
It's powerful, scrape it, and also we have a weather station here. That's probably the most important information we have here at the university, where it says the temperature. I think it's below Celsius here. I think this one is old. Green dump. It's not below 0 at the moment.
It's good to hear.
More like 30 plus. Yeah, and here we have the dashboard that our service desk people see. And here in the left corner, all of this green, happy, joy, we have all our distributed applications, and they can then instantly see if there's something wrong with the application. Here we have the Skype for Business, and here we have that copy print I talked about. Some of them are just a web test, and some of them are more advanced, checking ports and services and so on.
It's like you read my mind for the next question. The other thing that's cool about these two different views is so they're for different types of people. The data that's in SCOM can serve a boss type character, but they wouldn't care about all of it. They care about a subset, like possibly the status columns here. Of course, the lunch menu is universally important.
Yeah. And here we have as well the open tickets, and they have how many tickets there are out of date that need to be taken care of right away. And they can also see how many tickets they've handled today. And that's as well, we are running an ITIL approach here at the university. So here we have our cab calendar. So the service desk people can also see what planned installations or stuff that's going on at the moment. So they maybe can then relate an incident with some of these systems to something that's happening right now. And as well, we have our blog where we post alerts, and when something goes down or something's planned maintenance and so on, they can also see that on their dashboards.
Is that an iframe there?
Yeah.
Awesome. Another good example of bringing in data when it comes to showing the data from SCOM alongside other systems. That makes total sense. Not all of your data lives inside of SCOM all times. So yeah.
And here we have the integration to log analytics as well, where we pull out the update status and servicing changes and so on as well. Since we have all our SCOM agents pushing data to Azure and taking out updates from there as well. So we've done that as a dashboard as well for the teams that take care of the clients, so they can see the status.
Awesome.
I also have one more example. We here at Umeå University, we make the Swedish SAT test, högskoleprovet. And one day per year, or 2, we run the test 2 times per year. The students want to go in and see the results. And then those servers are on high load for that day when the results come out. So the developers that take care of that result web, they wanted the dashboard just to see their servers and the load and network usage, connection, latency, and so on. So we created a dashboard for them. Right now, there's no traffic to the server, it's just humming. But when the load comes on, they can see then what happens with the server, if there's a lot of network usage or high CPU or latency.
That's a really interesting use case. It's like any form of event where everyone hits the event provider or ticket site or whatever, in your case, results on one specific day and time.
Yeah, they only use it that day. Otherwise, it's not running it all.
Yeah, yeah. Really cool. Well, thank you for sharing this. Another great example of just basically pulling it all together and just getting SCOM to do so much more with what it already gives you out of the box. So thank you very much. Let me just share my screen for one last time. Those are the 5 tips that we've run through. I promise you links to things, including the blog I mentioned about pushing SCOM alerts to any REST endpoint using PowerShell. I'll put those links in the chat window now as well. So if you want to pick them up now, you can. After the event, we'll make these available on our blog at SCOMathon.com. But here we have essentially the blog on pushing SCOM alerts anywhere with PowerShell. You'll see just how easy it is to get going there. We have our free PowerShell authoring management pack that Nathan touched on earlier that lets you essentially run any PowerShell script in SCOM. Then we have EasyTune, which Jan demoed right at the beginning, which is all about tuning SCOM by turning stuff off and tuning up on a group-by-group basis. Of course, the dashboards are from SquaredUp. It's also worth saying on dashboards, there are built-in native SCOM console dashboards as well. And of course, loads of other content, such as the video for this particular webinar, will be on SCOMathon.com. We have our annual conference and our hackathon event that runs once a year. That generates tons and tons of content for how to solve all kinds of problems for SCOM, from the really, really simple to the in-depth. And no links page would be complete without a link to Kevin Holman's blog. Kevin Holman, I would say, is probably the undisputed kind of like expert in the SCOM space. There's no problem he hasn't come across before and attempted to solve on his blog. It's definitely worth checking out and searching if you have some specific issue. And this sort of touches on basically everything we've covered today, which is great. Oh, go on.
Oh, yeah, I was going to mention on the dashboarding, just so we don't sound completely biased. Of course, we have a little biased, but the important part, which goes through all of this that you've seen today, is as Jan showed, that those dashboards are actually configured to what you want, that you're not just taking just general everything up there. They were dashboards for specific teams that were specific to their needs, and that's really what gets people to use the product, is when it gets their information versus here's 40 data points that you might not be interested in. Change it to here's 5 that you said you're interested in, and that's really what gets the traction.
Totally. Cutting through, seeing signal from the noise, filtering down to what matters, and displaying that information contextually for the right people makes total sense. And that is how you bring the Manifesto for SCOM Success to life. It involves a bunch of tools and techniques. Hopefully that's been useful. So just before we wrap up with Q&A, just a quick word from our sponsors, who are Cookdown, who are the company that myself and Nathan work for. We make code-free integrations for SCOM that let you connect to SCOM, being the center of your world with Connection Center, to any tool you have in your IT estate, from ITSM tools like ServiceNow that we showed earlier, through to tools like Sharewell, Slack, Teams as well, messaging and notification platforms, but ultimately anywhere you like as well, with the power of the webhook. Of course, Connection Center is designed to be holistic, to not just push SCOM alerts out, but also to bring alerts into SCOM, also using webhook from any system that supports pushing via webhook. And again, all without writing any code. More information is at cookdown.com, where you can take a free trial of anything there, get a demo, and ask any questions as well. Then we have SquaredUp, who are the not-so-secret source for SCOM Success. You've seen a bit of what SquaredUp dashboards can do from Jan earlier on, really high-value dashboards to pull together information from SCOM and other systems. In fact, I'm branded today, look. SCOM will unlock all of the awesome data that you have inside of SCOM and other tools as well, and bring it all together in an awesome visual layer. Any questions you have for SquaredUp, go to squaredup.com. And that brings us to the end, where we'll take questions. So are there any questions? If so, please put them in Slack or in the Q&A pane of GoToWebinar. I'm just going to jump to the right place.
Got Slack up, and I don't see any there yet.
Ditto. I'm now in Slack in the right place too. So if there are questions, we'll take them now. We're obviously live, so please ask away. And if there aren't any, which there may not be. Let's see. I'm hearing silence. It either means we did an awesome job or a terrible job. It's really hard to tell which. All right. Well, either way, that appears to be us done. So all that's left to do is say thank you very much to all of you who took the time to attend today's coffee break. We're back at the same time next month, the last Tuesday of the month, with another topic, as we are every month. So do register at SCOMathon.com. And thank you to you, Jan, and to Nathan for joining me today and making this topic come to life with your awesome demos. Thank you very much. Until next time, thank you very much, everyone. And if there are any questions that come to mind after we close the webinar, feel free to put them in Slack. We'll be looking. Thank you very much.
Have a good afternoon.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.